Let me tell you what a normal morning looked like where I grew up. The alarm goes off at 3 in the morning, not 5, not 6, 3. You get up in the dark, you pack your husband's lunch, you start the coffee, you get the fire going if it is winter, and by the time the sun even considers coming up, you have already been working for 2 or 3 hours. That is not a bad day. That is just a Tuesday. My name is Eliza. I grew up Amish in Pennsylvania, and I left the community when I was in my early 20s. I am going to talk to you today about something I thought about a lot, both when I was still inside that life and after I left it. Because when people ask me what it was really like being an Amish woman, the word exhaustion comes up almost immediately. And then the question that follows is always this: how did you handle it? How did women do that every single day and keep going? I want to answer that honestly, not the romanticized version, not the version that makes everything look peaceful and simple, the real one. Because yes, the exhaustion was real. Let me not pretend otherwise. An Amish woman with a family is cooking 3 full meals from scratch every single day. She is doing laundry, cleaning, mending, and sewing clothes for everyone in the house. She is gardening through the growing season, canning hundreds of jars through late summer and fall, helping in the fields when the work demands it, and raising children, often many of them. The average Amish family has 5 or more children. Some women I knew had 8, 9, 10. You do all of that with no dishwasher, no dryer, no car to run errands fast, no phone to order pizza when you are too tired to cook. There is no shortcut. There is no delivery. There is just work. And the day starts at 3 in the morning and ends around 9 at night. And then you do it again. So the question is real. How did these women not completely collapse? The first answer is one that is very hard to explain to someone who did not grow up inside it, and that is the belief system itself. There is a German word the Amish use that I heard from the time I was very small. The word is Gelassenheit. It does not translate perfectly into English, but the closest meaning is yielding, surrender, letting go of self. It is described by scholars of Amish culture at Elizabethtown College as self-surrender, submission, yielding to the will of God and to others, contentment, and a calm spirit. I once heard an old Amish farmer describe it as, it fuses God's will, personal meekness, and small things done well. What that means in practice when you are dead tired at 7 in the evening and there are still dishes to wash and a child who needs attention is that you do not approach the tiredness the way modern culture teaches you to. You do not fight it with coffee and resentment. You do not feel cheated by it. You yield. You accept it as part of the life you were given, and you do the next thing in front of you. It does not make you less tired, but it changes the relationship with the tiredness completely. The weight of exhaustion in a life of purpose feels different than the weight of exhaustion in a life where you are not sure why you are doing any of it. That is something I did not fully understand until after I left. Now let me talk about the second thing, because this one is practical and real and documented. When an Amish woman has a new baby, the community sends help. There is a tradition called the Maud, which is the Pennsylvania Dutch word for maid. A young Amish girl, usually around 15 or 16 years old, is sent to the new mother's home to take care of the house. She cooks the meals, she washes the dishes, she keeps the other children occupied, she does the heavy work, and the new mother is not expected to do any hard labor for the first 6 weeks after giving birth. Her one job is to care for herself and her newborn. That is it. Nothing else is required of her. I want you to sit with that for a second. In a culture that works as hard as the Amish, there is still a built-in recovery period for new mothers. The community recognizes that a woman who just gave birth is at the edge of her capacity, and it responds by surrounding her with support. That is not something you see built into most of modern American life. Women here go back to work in 6 weeks or less, often sooner, and they are expected to act like nothing happened. The Amish understood something about physical recovery that gets lost in the rush of modern schedules. And this same instinct shows up in other ways too. Women did not carry everything alone. Quilting bees were a real and regular part of life. A group of women from the community would gather at one house, sometimes 8 or 10 of them, and spend the day together working on a quilt. And yes, it was work, but it was also hours of conversation, laughter, catching up, checking on each other. The labor was shared, the emotional weight was shared. You sat beside your neighbor and you both worked with your hands, and you talked about real things. That is not nothing. That is actually one of the most effective ways human beings have ever found to manage the grind of daily life, by doing it together. There was also something important about sleep that I did not appreciate until I saw what the absence of it does to people. We went to bed early, not 10 or 11, 8:30, 9 o'clock at night was normal, and we woke early. The sleep was aligned with natural light in a way that is almost impossible in the modern world. There were no screens in the bedroom. There was no television left running. There was no phone in your hand at 11 at night, pulling your brain into a state of alertness right before you needed to sleep. Research on old order Amish sleep patterns, published in peer reviewed journals, found that the Amish go to bed and wake significantly earlier than the general population because their light exposure follows the natural cycle of the sun. The body's circadian rhythm stays intact, and the quality of that sleep was real. Not perfect, not always enough hours, but genuinely restorative in a way that scrolling until midnight and then trying to sleep is not. When the exhaustion got heavy, there was also herbal help. Every Amish woman I knew kept chamomile drying somewhere in the house. A cup of chamomile tea at the end of the day is not just a tradition. Chamomile has documented mild sedative effects and is known to help calm the nervous system before sleep. Valerian root was another one used regularly. Research has shown that valerian enhances GABA activity in the brain, which is the same pathway that many sleep medications target, just much more gently. These remedies were not magic, but they were real, and they were what got reached for before anything stronger was considered. And then there is something that took me a while to understand after I left. When I was inside the community, I thought I would feel so much less tired once I had more modern conveniences. A washing machine that actually did the work, a car, a microwave. I thought the exhaustion would just lift. What I discovered was more complicated than that. The physical tiredness of Amish life was real. But a study called the Central Pennsylvania Women's Health Study, which surveyed 288 Amish women between the ages of 18 and 45, found that compared to non-Amish women in the same region, Amish women reported less stress and fewer symptoms of depression and had higher overall mental health scores. They also reported high levels of social support and low levels of intimate partner violence. That study was published in the Women's Health Issues Journal. I am not making that up. The women doing the hardest physical work reported less mental anguish than the comparison group. I think about that a lot now. What I came to understand is that exhaustion has two layers. There is the physical layer, the body that is genuinely worn out and needs rest and food and sleep. And then there is the mental and emotional layer, the one that comes from loneliness, from purposelessness, from doing work you do not see the point of, from feeling unsupported, from carrying everything by yourself in silence. The Amish had ways of addressing both layers, not perfectly, not always, but the structures were there, the community was there, the belief that your work mattered was there. I am not saying you should become Amish. I left, and I had my reasons, but I am saying that the way exhaustion was handled in that world had real wisdom in it. And a lot of women in the modern world are carrying tiredness that no amount of sleep is going to fix, because the missing piece is not rest. The missing piece is the thing underneath the tiredness that was always being addressed without anyone calling it by name,